Traditions are sacred in the South. The Masters, SEC football, and fried chicken anytime. Now, add one more. Pull up a chair, fix your glass, and get ready for some good old-fashioned Southern charm. Welcome to Success and Sweet Tea, a podcast dedicated to your success in business, lifestyle, and relationships, all with a shot of Southern magic. And now, coming to you from deep in the heart of the Southland, get ready for an engaging conversation with your new favorite Southern couple, Doug and Vickie Miles.
Welcome to another episode of Success and Sweet Tea. Today, Doug and Vickie welcome Dr. Andre Harrison, the Vice President of Accreditation Services with Cognia, an international accrediting agency for primary and secondary schools. Dr. Harrison will talk about his childhood in Alabama and the important parts of his family and his education that led to the successes that he has had in his long, illustrious career. So let's join Doug and Vickie.
Hello, everybody. As I'm sure you know by now, my name is Doug Miles, and I'd like to welcome you to this episode of our podcast, Success and Sweet Tea. It's great to be here today, and we got so much work to do. I don't want to take up a lot of time with introductions. We've got just a bunch of stuff we need to cover here, and Dr. Harrison's been good enough to give us his time, and we want to take full advantage of that. So, Vic, take it away.
I'm Vickie Miles, and it's great to be with you today, another episode of Success and Sweet Tea. And it is truly our pleasure to have Dr. Andre Harrison with us today. And it will be even more of a pleasure to get to hear your story, Dr. Harrison. So the purpose of everything that we do with Success and Sweet Tea is really to allow people to tell their story, and we love it when those people happen to be from the South. Okay. So we get to hear your story. I'll give a little bit of an intro so the audience will be prepared for what that story might entail. But we do look forward to everything you're going to share with us today and talk to us about how you have been able to accomplish all these many things that I'm seeing on this list of accomplishments, mostly circled or centered around education.
Okay.
Near and dear to my heart, since that's been my roots as well. I'm particularly impressed with how everything that I see that you've done with your experience with helping others with accreditation, served on boards, taught at major universities, all of the different things that you've been able to achieve, everything is about a process of improvement. And so I thank you for that first and foremost.
You're welcome, yes.
Because as we all try to do our best, we also want to make sure that everyone else is doing the best they can with what tools we're giving them.
Right.
So, without further ado, as they say in the South, Doug, if we had our glasses of sweet tea now, we would toast each other and we would begin to talk. But Andre, just tell us a little bit about the Andre Harrison story.
Well, I'm glad to, and thank you all for having me. It's an honor to be with you all today. Well, you're right. I'm from the South.
Yes.
I'm from Alabama. I grew up in rural Lowndes County at a time where I saw my grandfather, who had worked all his life, and he talked about the value of education. But at that point, as a child, it didn't connect with me. I noticed one thing I never saw Papa, as we call him, do. He never signed his name on anything, and I remember him bringing papers for others to read for him. And I remember him telling me, boy, he always called me boy, but I was his spoiled boy, because I went everywhere with him.
Right.
Get your education. He valued education, something that he couldn't have, but he wanted me to have that opportunity. And so when I was growing up, I knew education was important in my household, but I also knew that I was challenged because we didn't have a lot, as we say in the South, and there were 6 of us that my parents were trying to take care of. And I have parents that I love to this day, that they are still alive, but I know they were challenged just trying to put food on the table. So my vision in life, I had a plan. I said that, well, I'll drive a school bus and then work during the day and then try try and save up enough money to get to college.
Yes.
So I can go to college, because I always wanted to go to college. You know, along the way, I had several cheerleaders in the Andre fan club that said, you can do it. But I had
That's important, isn't it?
Right, it's very
That's
important.
important.
But I had one or two naysayers, you know, and I'll never forget, I was in the 11th grade, and we were going around the classroom, and the teacher was asking, what do you want to be in life? And, you know, and people were saying, teacher, professional athlete, scientist, and what have you. And when it got to me, I proudly said I wanted to be a teacher. And the response that I received was, you probably will not be successful. You may want to drive the school bus because you may not be a teacher. And that stayed with me. And, you know, to this day, it still gives me chills to talk about that, because as an educator, I have always wanted to empower people and support people. You can talk to people from around the country, and even before I became Vice President of Accreditation Services, I worked in Alabama as the State Director for Advanced Ed, now Cognia, and I connected with educators around Alabama that I never knew, but you can call any of them and they say, well, he will help you. But going back to that story,
Yes.
I almost felt, well, can I? Will I be able to do this? But I remember my high school counselor, because I always, anybody would tell you, he likes to talk. So I never had any image of what have you.
Well,
like
teachers
that.
talk. You
Yeah,
have to
that's right.
talk.
So I told people about what happened. And so my high school counselor, whom I still have a great deal of respect for, said, we're going to get you there. And so my high school counselor did find a way for me to go to college, and I started at Alabama State University. And the good thing is, I was learning to drive a bus, but I never had to do that because of how people helped me. And my faith is strong too.
Mm-hmm.
And I often tell people, you know, your faith is everything.
Yes.
And so I saw my parents and my father just every night on his knees praying, you know, and I learned to do the same thing. Still to this day, my wife laughs that he prays before he goes to bed, because that's how I was raised, you know. Mm-hmm. And so I started Alabama State University in the mid-'80s as a freshman, and we had to take a lot of placement tests. And I found that I was not at the grade levels in different areas academically that I thought I should have been.
Right.
And so in the back of my mind, I started thinking, was that teacher correct? However, Doug, I met some good people at Alabama State University that took care of me. They saw that I had, as we would say, the drive.
Yes.
That's one thing that nobody can hold against you. You got the drive.
Yeah, I had the drive.
You've got everything in its place to
Yes.
do anything you want to do. I mean, we'll get to it here in a little bit, but what you've achieved and where you are and how you started. I grew up with, unlike you, where people would say, you can do this, this is what you need to do, you know, we're going to make sure you get here. And I had a lot of advantages that you didn't have. And you have, it makes people, guys like me, ashamed, really, to see what you've done without all that support that we had built into our families. You overcame that, and what you've been able to accomplish with it is just really unbelievable. And if you don't have great faith to support that, then we need to look at Andre again.
Right, and I'll tell you, Doug, I'll never forget having to catch rides from Lowndes County, because some of my classmates had vehicles. I didn't have a car, you know, and my parents were trying their best to help me get from Hayneville to Montgomery. So we were having to catch rides, my cousin and I, and I'll never forget having to walk from I-85 to the campus of Alabama State University.
That's a long trek.
Catching different rides to go back and forth, you know, standing, regardless of the weather, trying to get there, because, again, I could hear my grandfather's voice get it. You can do it. And so that's what I did, and I graduated from Alabama State with honors. I started behind, but I graduated with honors and went to work in Elmore County as a teacher. And I took that value, you know, of getting a quality education with me to Elmore County to make sure I supported my high school kids. Sometimes would get upset if I say boys and girls, but to help them, you know. And I would tell you though, Doug and Vickie, along the way, I just knew how to connect with the right people.
Yes.
Because everywhere, and that's a Southern thing.
Isn't it, though?
It's a
Yes.
Southern thing. I travel around the country, and I can tell when I'm back home because, you know, I could be sitting anywhere and just have a conversation with someone.
That's right. Yeah. I was accused. They said, listen, if a tree will stand still long enough, you'll talk to a tree.
Right.
That's about the way I feel about it.
That's right.
But we're not afraid of relationships.
Correct.
And so that's how we all connect and relate. And as you're telling me your story, I'm already feeling like I've known you for 100 years.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Because those are the stories that we've all grown up with.
Right.
Someone somewhere along the line told us we couldn't do something.
Correct.
And people like us who aren't going to take no for an answer,
Right.
just use that as motivation. But like you
Exactly.
say, I'm hearing what you're saying. That little voice always stays in the back.
Right.
What if
right.
they were right?
Exactly.
And then there's that other voice that says, but they're not.
They're not. You can do this. I tell you the thing I regret, you know, and I shouldn't say regret, but when I graduated, before I graduated high school, Papa passed away in 1988.
What a sad day for you, Andre.
Exactly. But when I got my doctorate from Auburn, I'll never forget my mom found a way to have my grandmother there, and they found a way to walk down on the floor of the arena. And what my major professor said to me, Andre, I think that's your mom or somebody.
Your mom,
I
Andre.
said, that is. And so that was such an honor. And you know, y'all probably heard this term, don't forget where you came from.
Absolutely.
And so that's something so important, you know, that those folk along the way that helped me, you know, I'll never forget. That's one thing as a superintendent, even in work I do now, I tell people all the time, don't just look at the person's position, look at the person, because there were bus drivers, there were custodians, and others that helped and wanted to see Andre succeed. So I always think about those folk and connect with those folk and just let them know. But again, as you said, Vickie, that's just the Southern way.
That's how
you
we
know?
do it.
And so I tell you, I'm so thankful for my career, you know, moving through the superintendent, came to Elmore County as a teacher, moved up to superintendent through different areas, had a chance to work with some great people during my time, and then moved to this the position to be over accreditation for the state of Alabama. You know, got a chance to work with some key leaders and the governor and others, you know, and then moving on to this position. I never thought in a million years someone who grew up without running water in their home, having to go and draw water from the well and different things, and seeing most of the people around me that way, that I would someday share the stage with some of the people that I've been able to do. But I'll tell anybody, hard work, regardless of where you are. You know, you've heard people say this often, it's not where you start, it's where you finish.
Absolutely.
You know, and I still have that commitment of hard work. You know, I still have 2 or 3 jobs. Retired. We don't got to stop.
I think it's a bad habit that some of us just can't shake.
We can't shake it.
We
you
just
know?
can't.
Yeah, it
No.
just So I tell you, it's been. I'm very grateful. Very grateful.
Your story resonates for many reasons, but it has to be inspiring to other people. I mean, we didn't all get scholarships to Harvard, and so we all sort of had to come up our own way and do our own thing.
Right.
We all had our different track. I remember very well when I grew up, education for a female was rather optional.
Right.
And I've told the story many times, but I was the one that decided I was going to go to college, and I was the one that decided I better go find out what it was all about. And we laugh about this a lot because I drove myself to Alabama Christian College, in Montgomery, Alabama, to ask the questions of the admissions officer when I was probably about 16. How do I go to school here?
Right.
And so I understand the fact that we didn't all have someone to pave a pathway,
Right.
but you have gone down the path and always been recognized for just what you said, your hard work, your determination. So I just say that because look where you are now, and how many people have you touched along the way? You made the statement earlier, education changes lives. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes.
You are doing everything in the world of education.
Right.
Talk about, so others will also be inspired. What about education and how it changes
You know,
things?
you almost are about to bring tears to my eyes by just some of the comments that you've made. Because I think about, you know, the value of education and what it can do for you. I've heard people say the quickest way out of poverty is through an education.
Yes.
And so I believe in the value of education. So I would tell anybody out there, you know, if you want it, if you dream to succeed, get the knowledge and skills that you need to succeed. And by doing that, you do it through an education. And I tell people, you know, I got an education, but my education allowed me to also learn new skills and apply those skills and get experiences
Yes.
to build on that. So every opportunity is, I tell people this, every challenge is an opportunity for me to learn. So that's the reason why I want people to know that if you want it, there are several opportunities out there to get it. Doug brought up a good point, you know. He was brought up different than I, you know, but yet and still, I think we both can relate and talk about some of the ways we've been successful in life. I probably had to work a little harder, get a little more resources and what have you. But again, it can happen. And I often tell people to think about the people that they have in their circle. Use those resources also. You know, a lot of times I don't know, in my job now, I have a team that supports accreditation across the country for Cognia. We have over 36,000 institutions that we work with across the globe. So there are a lot of times I was working just recently with someone. I've just finished helping the University of Alabama write a book to be used here in the state to train superintendents on school finance.
Excellent.
So I was trying to figure out how to do the table of contents.
The hard part.
Hard part. So I quickly said, I know that there's someone on our team, because it's not my team, it's our team.
Right,
And
right.
so I tell people that all the time. Be careful how you use the pronoun I and my.
Yes.
And
Exactly, exactly right.
I called someone and she said, yes, I can help you, Andre. And she walked me through it. And here's the funny thing. I have a friend in Tennessee that I admire a great deal. We were working on a project together, and I said, Dr. Connie, I can do a table of contents now. She said, well, you go right on and do it, you know. but Vicki, I do want to talk about something that I've noticed with you and Doug, you know. You know, I was blessed with a wonderful wife. And it makes all the difference when
does.
you have that person
Yes.
that the Lord has sent you.
44 years as of tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
That's 2 4s.
Right. Yeah. There you go. My wife grew up like I did, but she grew up in Moss Point, Mississippi, in single parent home. And so they had challenges also. And she went to got an opportunity to go to the University of Alabama. She was very talented, and so she came to Elmore County as an English teacher, and I was an English teacher also. And we met that way, and we've been married for 28 years. We just celebrated 28 years.
Yes.
And so, you know, and we've worked together. Several projects. We do a lot of things together, and we'll have you, and people see us together often. So
Yes.
that makes a difference too, you know. But again, you know, I talked about the value of education, but I also, again, I want to go back to faith
Yes.
and being focused, you know, and knowing that, as some folks say, ask and you shall receive, you know.
Correct.
And so my daughter, Andrea, I didn't have a junior, but she reminds me often that she's my junior, especially when it's with the resources, Doug.
That's right. That's right.
And so she's doing well, so just grateful for those opportunities. But I told her too, as a young lady, I said, you've got to get your education and think about a field tied to science, technology, engineering, and math, or STEM, and she did. She's a clinical laboratory scientist, and she supervises the night shift. Well, she loves to work on the night shift at Grandview Medical Center in Birmingham. So, again, just really happy about some of those things, and I know I need to probably turn back this way. Okay. Okay, but great question.
Yes. Well, another thing that you mentioned, and it also hits home for us, one thing we talk about often, and we talk a lot, don't we, Doug?
I won't let you answer that one. Yes, we do.
We talk a lot. And it's all centered around, now at this point in our lives, how do we help others?
Right.
I can see that in your conversation.
Right.
Your heart is speaking that way.
Right.
I'm not sure that we assume anymore that everyone is interested, number one, in hard work.
Yes.
Number two, if they're interested in it, have they had a role model like your papa that would show them how to do that?
Right.
Like we've had in our lives. We both came from families with strong fathers. I am so convinced that strong fathers make such a difference in strong lives.
Right.
But what do we do to make that better, Andre? That bothers us so much.
Well, number one, I told you I was and I'm an adjunct assistant professor, so I'm always trying to stay abreast of the current research and trends and what's happening, because, again, Vickie, you bring up a great point. Society is changing.
Yes.
You got people like you, Doug, and me, that we are retiring eventually and we're moving on.
Right.
But we want to make sure that people coming behind us are successful. I was just recently reading a book, A New Kind of Diversity, and it really put it all together for me. It was so fun when I looked at the book. I said, I wonder what this book is about. It was talking about people in general in the different generations and what we need to do to ensure people coming after us are successful. So the book, number one, pointed out, like the baby boomers, the Gen X, the millennials, and the Gen Zs, and how just to understand, like my daughter, for example, is a millennial, kind of on the line of Gen Z, where she will not take a phone call, but she'll text me all day long.
Yeah.
I tell Doug all the time, they don't want to talk, they want to text.
But you know me, I want to talk.
Exactly.
I want to talk.
Yeah.
So does he.
So what I'm really doing, and I had an opportunity to share this with superintendents and school board members throughout the state of Alabama at their recent conference in March. And we talked about, just trying to make sure we're getting to know them and understand their level of comfort and their interest and try to connect that way. And the key thing is sometimes, I'm okay with getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and talking to people. Other folk may want to say, no, I'm not going to do it that way, but I'll do it this way.
Right.
So the challenge for us, what I found, is that people are not the same as we are in a way of thinking about different types of ways of commitment, thinking about different types of ways of making sure they get the job done. They want to get it done, but they'll get it done their way. As a assistant superintendent, I'll never forget when I went to Elmore County, my dad took me to the interview, and he basically said, if that lady offers you that job, you're done. You're going to say yes, and you're done. Forget about anybody else calling you, because you've made the commitment to Miss Wooten, Reba Wooten, who I still love to this day. And you made a commitment to her, and you will take that job. So guess what happened? Miss Wooten called. My dad was standing over me as I told her I would take the job, and that was in the story.
Yes.
And I had some other offers, but that was in the story. And so when I was assistant superintendent for Dr. Langham of personnel and curriculum, we were hiring teachers And so the biggest thing I loved about it, and most principals will tell you this, once you get your teachers hired, you can go and have a good summer because you got your staff, your
Right.
teachers, custodians, everybody. But what got me lately in my career as assistant superintendent of personnel, people would say that, yes, we'll take the job. And then 2 days later calling and saying, oh, we got another job, so we want to resign. I was not used to that.
No.
No, and Andre, in my business, I have seen people leave me for a nickel raise an hour, and then have to drive twice as far to get that extra nickel.
Exactly.
And they didn't realize and take the time to understand it cost them another nickel to get it.
Exactly. And so that's the thing, I'm constantly counseling, because people come to me, and I'm grateful that millennials and Gen Zs value Dr. Harrison enough to say, hey, what you think? Even though sometimes I give them advice, and I think it's sage advice, do something just what you said. But I think often, I always tell them, Doug, think about your benefits, especially if they have a family. You may make 35 cents to a quarter less, but think about the benefits for your children and your family. And does it have good insurance? Does it have good retirement? And those type things, down the road, is it going to allow you an opportunity to advance or get promoted, in your position? And so those are things, I think Vickie, to go back, I think we need to do more focus groups, some type of awareness type information. It doesn't have to be training, but more information, and have people from Alabama and from the South and what have you say, hey, this is what we want, this is what we recommend, and this is how we can help you, and connect with that person, and stay with that person. I've had good mentors in life that have helped me so much, and I still to this day talk to a lot of those mentors that are alive. And I just lost a great mentor, Dr. Alma Freeman from Alabama State University. She was the dean of University College when I got there, and she was the one who said to me, we're going to make sure you're successful. And she was very stern with that too. She was almost like my mom away from home. And so I listened to her, and she said to me, you will succeed. And she passed away recently, and her husband reached out to me and said, well, Alma, and so you're going to be one of the ones that speak at her
What a
memorial.
wonderful honor.
It was.
That was going through my mind. I hope you were there to deliver the eulogy.
I was, and I was the last person to reflect, and I often tell people, I think about this verse, I think it's in 2 Timothy, where Paul talks about, I fought the good fight.
Yes.
I have finished the race.
Yes.
I kept the faith. Alma Freeman, who was my shero.
I love that. Shero.
Yeah, she was my shero. She did, and she was always talking about education. And she often talked about, having to travel around the country in different places, to speak and those things. So I just always say, there are good people out there. Great question. Connect with someone that you respect, you admire, and let them mentor and guide you. There's a reason why they're where they are.
That's exactly right. But she gave you such sage advice. She never said to you, I will give you success.
No.
She said, we will get to success.
Exactly.
And so instilling that work ethic these days, thank you for sharing that information about the book. I'll get that information from you later.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful point for us to remember, because we've all done it the way we were taught to do it.
Correct.
And so we know what we know.
Correct.
And there's a certain amount of principles. First of all, I hope we do not lose kindness and respect for others. I'm seeing it pass a little further down the road, but I refuse to let it pass me by.
Right.
And I hope we can continue to instill certain basic principles. But on the other hand, there's still a work ethic. However you choose to do it, you've still got to be willing to work.
Right. Vickie, I hate to jump in here, but you said two powerful words, being kind and having respect. I value those words. And I'm hoping that anybody that you meet and you ask them about Andre Harrison, they will say he's respectful, and as they say in the South, he has a kind heart.
A kind heart, yes.
I've always tried to do that. I was talking to a lady from Gadsden, from Edgewater County, about 2 weeks ago, and she called me and she was like, Dr. Harrison, I know you're not over Alabama anymore, but I just like sometimes talking to you because I know you're going to take care of us. And that just brings joy, you know, because I do want people to say that if you call Andre Harrison, he's going to get it done. He's going to take care of you. And even in the work that I do now for Cognia, I oversee all of the accreditation complaints. So if somebody complains about accreditation, 9 times out of 10, I have the honor of talking with them. And so and even when we're talking with people and they're upset, I always try to make sure that we bring calmness to the situation.
Yes.
And here's the thing, Doug, if you do that well, you stay doing that.
That's true.
And so I've been doing that for 3 years, and I tell my supervisor all the time, I enjoy it. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy helping people. And like I said, you know, I've talked to parents who have concerns and different things, but yet and still, I try to talk them through different situations and counsel principles and what have you. But it goes back, Vickie, before you can do that type of work, you need the education and knowledge and skills. And most importantly, what I try to tell younger people coming behind us, credibility.
Yes.
That's so important to become credentialed in order to be credible.
Absolutely.
And those are things I often tell people about 3 C's, you know, having the commitment, being competent, and having the competence to get it done.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Success and Sweet Tea. Please join us again in 2 weeks when Doug and Vickie continue their conversation with Dr. Andre Harrison, and they talk more about success both in life and in education. See you then.